In part one of our final interview with Pat McKenna, head of product and marketing for Mini USA, we really talked about his early years at BMW, which included the legendary BMW films. We then went into depth on his first few years at Mini and launching the R and F Series cars that helped dramatically expand the brand. Oh, and we also hear an incredible story about working with Steve Jobs and some advice he gave Pat on cars. You'll definitely want to check that out. In part two, we go into details on the current model range and some exclusive news on the manual transmission and some new options.
This car we're riding in today is probably the best equipped generation of vehicles that we've ever done.
So you've got essentially, because you've got the base Countryman, which we're in right now basically, is the S, and it's an S with all four.
Yeah.
And so you've gotten rid of the Cooper, and now we're on to the current generation / new generation, depending on how you look at it. So you basically walk into the dealer and buy more or less the base car and get a ton of options kind of baked in. And I've written about this in MotoringFile. I mean, if you look like for like, and I'm sure you'll probably tell me even with greater detail, you are getting more value for the money in this car than you did in the previous generation.
Absolutely.
At the base level at the very least.
Yeah. And there was an article out there saying how, a fully loaded hardtop is below 40,000. It's even less than a fully loaded F56. Mm-hmm. So I think that kind of underscores the point. But the other thing that I think we worked on was, and I give a lot of credit to my after sales colleagues, but in those days with like the R56 and that whole generation, there wasn't really a low oil sensor in the car. There was a...
Oh, right.
So for the people who check their oil, no problem. But we would sometimes have customers coming in, there would be like a quart of oil in the car, and that's just not...
That's not good.
It's like the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So actually, it was getting, the actual, low oil sensors in the car in that F56 generation. There was a guy, Craig Westbrook, who was the head of after sales at the time. He was like a really critical person in that situation to get to make that happen. So those are like, so there's kind of like small incremental changes.
Yeah.
But now when we look years later, I think in Consumer Reports, we're number 3 for overall quality of any car company, quality, dependability, and I think that low oil sensor was part of it. It's to just make it really put the tools in the car to really know if there was a low oil situation. So something as simple as that.
The small things, because that's obviously, that's something, especially with an older car, as these cars have aged, people have had trouble with that because maybe they're not used to that as an aspect of ownership.
Yeah.
So then, would you say that, because to back up your point, as a sort of independent source here, yes, Mini quality has increased dramatically. I've heard stories from dealers that were quite frankly hurting the service department because they used to rely on fixes, warranty fixes, etc., that just have evaporated, to a great degree.
Yeah, when you're number 3 out of 32 car companies for dependability and reliability, it means you're not doing a lot of recalls. So for a dealer, that's warranty and recall work. So that's business that other brands, quite frankly, have.
Yeah.
And we were at one of those lower positions during that time frame.
Yeah.
So that, I think, was a great accomplishment, and I think being part of the brand, also for me personally, it was just a fun place to work.
I just have to ask, it must have killed you to know that the manual transmission, and it had, of course you weren't the person making the decision, had to go away for the brand. as it has for every car. I think almost every car now out there. I think about BMW. I think the M2 and the M3, M4. That's it. I think Volkswagen. It's gone. It's gone for everybody. And so it's not even just a mini thing. It's just a thing that we're kind of seeing in the marketplace.
Yeah, that's one of those things where it's painful, and it's almost painful to have that kind of inside knowledge, if you will. And usually, we'll talk about this years in advance. So we're talking about it, well before it actually happens. But I think because of the complexity for every car company building electric and ICE, it is so complicated, to say the least. Like this car we're in, so the Countryman comes down the same production line as its battery electric equivalent. And
an X1.
Yeah,
BMW X1 and an X1.
I wasn't going to say that, but okay.
And and the 1 Series, whatever that. There's multiple versions of the BMWs as well. Just to further complicate.
Right, but to produce a gas car and its electric equivalent is so complicated, and it's capital intensive. It's really, really expensive.
The way I've written about it is essentially BMW. Many other car companies they're running 2 car companies.
Yes,
there's 2 separate.
That
product
really
lines.
is the perfect way to put it. And I'm so thankful that that's the approach that we took, because to say it's going to be one or the other, and we see other companies really struggling with this now. So I'm happy that they're made in parallel. So yeah, things like manual transmission, I lose some sleep over. And I would say, to explain a little bit about the role that I play and that our team, the product team, plays within Mini USA, is to really advocate for the US customers. So we're petitioning to bring it back. I can't promise anything.
Oh, that's amazing.
But it's important that people, it's kind of like, I would say it this way, it's like your tax dollars are hard at work, right? It's like, my paycheck, the way I see it, my paycheck comes from Mini customers, right? And
that's a great, can I just pause on that for a second? Because that is an incredible thing to hear, as so many fans listening. I just want to reiterate that, like your paycheck, like how you measure success is happiness of customers. It sounds like
there are times when I'm in the office and I will say, the customers are the ones who keep the lights on here. Like that's how literal I get about it. So it's something I feel passionately about. So our position in the company is really, so picture the United Nations. There'll be times when we're with all the other countries, and we're always in the top 3 or 4 countries in the world for Mini. And that means we have a say. We have a say in how things happen for the brand, what we'd like to see for the brand from a product standpoint. And I have to say, we have great partners in Europe, in Germany, great people who love this brand as much as we do. And there's a real can-do attitude. So I would say our job is to be the squeaky wheel. Our job is to
speak for the U.S. customer.
Yeah, give a perspective. It might not be, sometimes we'll get an answer. It's not possible. It's just, and there have been times we've petitioned for things that just, I spent the first few years of my career at Mini petitioning for a diesel.
Yeah, that's a great story, because I know that you got very close to it.
Got very close.
Yeah.
And so that didn't come to be, and sometimes not doing something was actually the better way to go.
Yeah, in retrospect, you're totally right.
So
that's so
I think,
interesting.
So this is a good example where it's important to say kind of what's happening behind the scenes, because at the end of the day, we'd love to see.
Yeah.
We're enthusiasts just like all of you are.
Yeah.
And we would love to see a manual transmission back. So I think...
Well, fingers crossed. Obviously, nothing is set in stone at this point, but I appreciate you sharing that. That's, at the very least, knowing that you are trying to do that. I think so many people will just respect and appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's where, I'll give an example, like even in the car we're driving, we're getting feedback. We want more options with paddle shifters on the steering wheel.
I've certainly been a big part of big voice there. I know.
I might not like the petrol dash. I would like to have a black dash. I'd like to have an anthracite headliner. I'd like to have... So that is happening right now where we're petitioning. So what you have to do is change the rules for the entire world. So it's not just the United States. You have to actually change the product rules in the way we produce cars on the production line. And we are kind of leading the charge to... We're probably the most vocal about it, saying these are some things we definitely want to change. So that's an example of like what we're really doing right now. Like one thing we've heard, more black wheels. So we just introduced so the 19-inch run spoke JCW wheel. We're now making that available on every version of the Countryman.
Okay.
So that was us hearing from dealers who are hearing from all of you.
Consumers, yeah.
Yeah.
We were rudely interrupted by a battery that died. But you were saying that there's some changes coming to some of these cars that are going to help sort of expand personalization. Colors and different things,
like just
combining.
And sometimes it's as simple as just relaxing some of the rules on, color combinations. So that's something we're working on. But something as simple as just taking an existing wheel and making it,
like gloss black or something.
Yeah, in a gloss black or matte black. That actually is a massive undertaking because it usually requires crash testing and just
so it takes some time.
Discussions with suppliers and durability testing, and it's just so nothing is as simple as Gabe and Pat just go to Home Depot and get
make a can
of Krylon and just spray it on. So that's
hilarious.
part of the that's part of a car company.
The complexity of doing these things.
Yes.
So I think the other thing that you mentioned too was just the some of the product decisions that have been made over the years. The genesis of the R60 was actually during the economic crisis, and trying to sort of broaden a Mini's appeal. Is that right?
Well, there were a number of cars. When the financial crisis was happening, there was, I think, a lot of go back to the drawing board. What can we do? And that's where the Coupe and Roadster came from. That's where the Paceman came from. So R58, 59.
And none of those were big sellers, but you said it earlier. I'll agree. They are, basically cult classics.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
On Mini Takes the States, the amount of Roadsters, and a shout out to all of you, Roadsters and Coupes, is really inspiring.
It's incredible.
But at the time, this is where sometimes cars that are, the word we use is polarizing, they get that following years later.
Yeah.
But when they're brand new, sometimes it's,
it's challenging to understand.
It's challenging,
and then eventually it comes into focus.
Yeah, and and I think the idea was bringing in even more people to the brand. So that's just a little bit of on the origin of how things come to be.
Yeah, that's interesting. With that said, I guess it's probably a good time to close it because I think you and I can talk probably forever about this. I'm sure we will later, but yeah, I mean, you're leaving, of course, the Mini brand in the U.S. in good hands. We've launched, this new family. I kind of would love to hear, what are you excited for? What's next for you?
So for me, after 27 years of really working, pretty tirelessly.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to just making myself a priority. So this is my start of production, like my, like focusing on my launch.
I love it.
So I'm definitely going to do some volunteer work, some giving back, spend time at the Jersey Shore with my wife and our cat and our dog, and our kids are away at school, but really just focusing on life. And I'm thrilled to welcome, so Kate Alini is going to be my successor, and Kate was part of the original Mini team that launched Mini way back when.
She's got a good history with the brand, so she knows it well.
So
that's awesome.
So it's nice that it's a homecoming for her.
Well, Pat, I'll say this for all Mini fans out there. Thank you so much for everything you've done.
Thank you.
I really, really appreciate it. I know everybody else does. And, definitely keep in touch.
Thank you for all the great years and for just making this fun.
Awesome. All right.
Thanks.